Hello, and welcome to the podcast where good trivia gets rewarded and bad lies are punished. This is What's the Fact?
Yes, and sometimes even good lies are punished. Welcome to the show. My name's Ryan Whittle. This is Warren Robertson. You're most warmly welcome to our podcast.
Yes, good.
Our podcast is called What's the Fact? It's not called Failures with Warren Robertson and Ryan Whittle. That's not the name of these two comedians.
Yeah. Although it really could be. It could be.
Welcome to Failures with
Yeah.
me, your host, Ryan Whittle, and my guest, Warren Robertson.
Yeah, you could turn that around for us, though, by sharing the podcast, liking it, telling your friends. Thank you very much for liking, subscribing, and for watching. We appreciate it immensely
Absolutely.
because failures. Good. Yeah, what a weird
Lovely,
topic. What a weird topic.
Yeah, I mean you could go anywhere, like any sporting event, the losing team.
Yeah.
eh?
Yeah, it's the demotivational podcast. It's not motivational. You know, Dietz
No.
could have gone, "Oh, we want heroic successes, make people feel good about their lives, the underdog
Yeah.
victories." No, these are the people who lost to the underdogs and therefore massive failures. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we sometimes give each other a clue as to what direction we're going in during the research phase, just to make sure we don't double up. And no one went with the Alan Donald, Lance Klusner run out. You know, that's like,
Yeah. You say
it would
that.
build up so much trauma.
I lose 3 months of my life every time I think of that game. The stress, the anxiety.
I mean, and the Australians, and Warney was there, and it would have been so nice.
And now it means nothing to him because he's dead. Anyway. Heartbreaking. Anyway, so in the end, it was quite strange digging into people's mistakes and the failures and these sorts of things.
Yeah.
Because it's a part that like life doesn't really like us to dwell on anymore. You know, the internet wants
Yeah.
us to, hey, remember everybody's a success, everybody's beautiful, everybody's wonderful. There
Yeah.
never were any mistakes. You know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And yet there's a counter movement, a gentle one. Like, have you heard of books called Anti-Fragile
Mm-mm.
and that sort of thing? The gentleman who wrote it is he's from Lebanon, and he's quite an intellectual, but he's a bit rebellious as well. And he just thinks that, minor stresses throughout your life actually make you stronger. It basically, in a nutshell, it's a thick book, but it's cool. Basically, in a nutshell, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So he thinks failures are
Well, I mean, you think about
failing
those
is a
people, the
jolly
people
good
who
thing.
do have the drive and the ambition to achieve in life quite often. It's because they weren't loved very much by their parents, you know.
Failed as a little
Yeah, I'm
kid.
gonna
You
try
weren't
and
cute
explain-
enough
yeah,
to
this-
be loved
this-
by your parents.
That's how I'm explaining my failures. I was loved by my parents. It's their fault. They should have died homeless in the gutter, and I would have been fine. But yeah, it's opened up a lot of quite famous stories as well. I
Yes,
think.
absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know whose turn it is to go first. Is it mine or is
Do
it
you
yours?
think it's yours?
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Where do I start? All right, let's start with a quick one. In 2005, 3 guys by the name of Steve Chen, Chad Hurley, and Javed Karim created a video dating site. And basically,
Wow.
where the users could upload videos of themselves talking about who they're looking to meet.
Oh.
You know, the idea being that people would then go and watch all these videos and then contact the person whose video they like the most. Except that they found that nobody was uploading their video. They even offered to pay women $20 each to upload their videos to the site, and nobody was doing it. So, you know, by all accounts, massive failure of a dating website because, you know, there's nobody there. But yeah, cut to the present, and that same company reported earnings of $7.34 billion just for the second quarter of 2022. That's my fact.
Okay, so I immediately thought of, you could be talking about YouTube, whose initial purpose might have been dating, but I don't. That doesn't ring a bell to me. So maybe you're talking about the guys who then evolved their video platform rather to whatever Tinder is today, and Tinder, as far as I know, is not video, but merely so maybe video was too much for a dating website, or maybe the uploading a video thing was too new a technology. I don't know, but I'm guessing you're speaking the truth and you're talking about Tinder, and that these oaks actually started. They thought video was the way to go back in 2005. So I'm going to say, when all is said and done, that your fact is true for those two reasons.
You were really like the thinking there was great because it
I'm
is in fact,
picking it up from
and I'm doing it. I'm doing it
your
simply
way.
because this is where most people are seeing us now. Is YouTube? It's YouTube. It was the
Ah,
start of YouTube, and the thing that changed them over
okay.
was they literally went, well, nobody's uploading their dating videos. Let's let them upload whatever they want.
That is hysterical.
And then people were like, oh, okay, well
It's like,
now we're interested.
you know, that's hysterical. Like, someone obviously had this dream of this is going to be the next big thing, dating
Yeah.
video. Let's wait. We've gone live, big launch party.
But you see,
Nothing.
video dating was a thing. So
Oh,
you would go to a dating agency and they would give you like a video cassette, a VHS, and then you'd go home and you'd put the VHS in. And if you look them up, you can still find some of them. And it's
really?
guys kind of to the side like this. Hi, I'm Chad Michaels, and I love, skiing and dogs and eating women out.
Oh my
And it's
God.
guys dressed in their nicest
Chad.
suits. Yes, it's all that. And then you'd get like 50 guys on this video and you'd get a sense of who they were. So obviously these guys had this idea where they were like, okay, well, we're gonna do that just on the internet. But then ultimately they were just being too niche. They didn't have to be. They didn't have to be niche at all. They were just like, put whatever you want on. Fine. Fine. Put whatever you want on. We don't care. Oh, they are. They are putting whatever they want on, and it's amazing.
And then
Yeah,
the
and then they
dude said,
sold.
"This is me. I'm at the zoo. This is a video of me at the zoo."
Yeah, yeah, and they
and
sold.
that was
They,
the first ever one.
and then in the end, they sold it to Google for I think so like 1.2 billion or something.
Goodness
You know,
me.
just because they let other people upload their videos on their website.
I mean, it's my favorite thing, YouTube. It's my favorite thing.
Mm.
YouTube, I even subscribe to YouTube Music.
Oh,
'cause
there we are.
It learns my favorite things. Yeah.
Wow, wow. I mean, if the
Even-
algorithm is listening, that
Uh-huh.
is doing us all of the favors, right?
Yeah, I mean,
And,
it's got a modern talking
except that
song in
I've
my
already said
playlist.
eating women out. Done the other thing for the algorithm.
Taking women to eat out. That's what he, that's what
Yes,
he meant.
taking women. Yes, sorry. That's what I said, right?
So we're going from uploading videos to downloading some communism in Africa. Yeah. Oh dear.
No, I mean a big radio career beckons.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So, of course, I'm talking about our revolutionary hero, our favorite. We've talked about him on the podcast before,
No,
Mr.
you should, you
Mr.
should
Shea and his
I was about
beret.
to say
Yeah.
I could see where you were going because you have spoken about him on the podcast quite a bit before.
Yes, definitely about his beret and a bit about his life. And I haven't seen the movie, but I really want to. And I keep saying that Benicio del Toro.
Motorcycle Diaries.
Yeah.
That one.
Is it not just called Shay? But
Maybe there is a movie called Shay.
and it's Benicio.
Okay.
He's definitely well cast. And and Shay, once again, funny looking child, funny looking adolescent, and then even as a young adult, funny looking. Then he just gets this revolutionary, I don't give a shit look on his face, and the beard and the cigar, and he just looks like it. He looks like the dude. He's like bigger than James Dean, bigger than Elvis.
Well, there's that photo of him that's on like all those illegally on all of these t-shirts. He probably would have been horrified.
Yeah.
But like that's the definitive image of what a revolutionary looks like, to the point that when you are a revolutionary throughout Africa or South America, you have to wear a beret. This is the sign that
Yeah.
I am a badass. I wear a French beret.
Yeah.
Like it's become the thing.
But the personality type that gets ultra idealistic and ultra ambitious, it's a very Scottish play tragedy, the rise and the fall, man. And so such great sweeping successes in Cuba. Then he just got bored. He's obviously an implementer. He doesn't want to sustain the machine. He wants to launch the machine. Then he gets bored.
But I suppose in a way that's kind of like somebody like Elon Musk, right? He likes to launch stuff,
Mm.
and then if he sticks around running it, he's just terrible. Just
Yeah.
doesn't know what he's doing. He must
Yeah,
move on. He
move
must
on.
appoint somebody, move on, and then start a new thing.
Alexander the Great had that issue as well. He liked conquering a place,
In
pulling in.
many ways, I'm like that. I start a project and then I forget about it. Watch some YouTube, and then I start another project, forget about
Conquer
it,
a new
watch some
series on
YouTube.
Netflix.
That's
Yeah,
right.
do I have to finish season 3? No.
Yeah.
Let's conquer a new series.
I'll finish the dishes later, is what I say to myself.
Yeah.
I'm a revolutionary like Shay. I'm just here to start the dishes. Someone else must come and finish them. Someone else must make the bed.
So old Shay starts, big success in Cuba, starts criticizing the Soviets for not being communist enough, which is great. Interesting little thing to say. And then he thought, aha, Africa's this imperialistic missing link. There's some opportunities for a revolution in Africa. Now, I like the guy's passion and his ideology of let's make the world a better place. Although initially you have to use the gun to make the world a better place. But if you're just convinced, if you could just believe me, once I've finished shooting your government, I'm here to make the world a better place. There's a weird ideology in there that is quite nice.
It's
Except
strange.
the shooting
It's
part.
strange as an outsider, to show up and be like, "Hey guys, let's shoot your government." Hey guys, have we ever considered murdering everyone in charge and putting in a totally different system around here? Be perfectly nice. Like if you just take that guy and imagine him coming over to your house. He comes over to your house. Ding ding. Hi. Have you guys ever thought about fucking some shit up around here? Fuck off, Shay.
So Shay got immensely disillusioned. He arrived in the Congo. Now it's 1965. He is the 2IC of Cuba. He's quite well known around the world, but he still wants to go and do this quiet revolutionary work all over the world. And he went in incognito to the Congo with like 12 Cuban dudes. And then there was a regiment of half Cuban and half African dudes. And he sided with the dude who would eventually become the president of Congo, Lawrence Kabila. And he was like, right, we're in this little corner of Congo. We're going to train up. I'm going to teach you communist ideology. We're going to find a way to overthrow the government because Lawrence Kabila was trying to fight for the presidency the president who'd been ousted. And there was all this, but the Congo had had years and years of infighting anyway. And that region, even today, is a big fat mess. The Lord's resistance armies there, that sort of thing. But he had big ambitions for it. Then he got disillusioned by, I think he just felt the African soldiers didn't want it badly enough, or too much infighting, or tainted by corruption and bartering and that sort of, and they changed sides. And he just got disillusioned. Plus, the CIA had a ship going constantly off the east coast of Africa around Dar es Salaam, picking up his every little radio phone call. And so they just, what's that word where you mess up his plan? They thwarted his plans.
Right.
Plus, there was a famous old kind of extra-Rhodesian dude called David Hawes or something, who also was pulling in there and it went nowhere. And he lost 6 of his 12 original friends. And one night he's just like, stuff it, I'm going home. He had dysentery and asthma, and he was prepared to die for communism in Cuba.
Just not of dysentery.
And his friends were like, no, you must leave. And even Castro sent a few people to find him in the Congo and like, no, come. It's not worth you dying here. Just come. And so he eventually left. And my fact is that he left by fleeing Congo into Uganda, and he left on an airplane in Kampala, the military was run by a certain Idi Amin at the time, who allowed him to escape. That's how.
So you say Idi Amin helped him to escape? That's your fact.
He was not president of Uganda at the time. He was head of the army, and he left from Entebbe Airport in Kampala, Uganda. That's how he fled Africa. Bit of a row up Lake Tanganyika, but he got there. I don't know if he rode, but they had to cross
maybe
the lake.
Swim, maybe ski on the back of a crocodile.
Yeah. Are the crocs in Lake Tanganyika?
I don't know. I'm just
it's
saying,
still called Lake
saying nonsense things just to try to see if I can wangle a facial expression that's uncomfortable from you.
Yeah, your eyes go all.
How else?
Your eyes go all Hannibal Lecter, and I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm
I'm trying to
Clarice
analyze it.
Starling. Is her name Starling?
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like I'm Clarice and you're Hannibal, and you're like, "They tell me, are the lambs silent, Clarice?"
Um, right. So did he leave by a plane? Yes, he definitely left by plane. The swim to Cuba would have been a bitch. Uh, but was it Idi Amin that helped him? You see, you're not looking me in the eye, which is very suspicious. Is this?
How's this? With clockwork?
Oh no, that
Have some
helps. That
clockwork
really helps,
orange.
right? That makes you look vastly less suspicious.
Some clockwork orange
Hmm.
going on, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're uncomfortable with your lies. I think that's what this is. I think you're uncomfortable with your lies. Yeah, it's a lie.
All right, Dr. Lecter. Yes, it is a lie. So the red herring was Kampala and Entebbe and Idi Amin, but he was captain of the army at the time. But no, he crossed the lake into Tanzania, went by road. I don't know how he got there specifically by road, but all the way to Dar es Salaam, which is a Musa way across. Tanzania is big, so it's like half the width of Africa. He went by road, and he kind of had a very clandestine um, period of staying in the Cuban embassy in Dar es Salaam for months.
So like Julian Assange.
Yeah, and then a little bit for some reason did eventually go to the Cuban embassy in Prague, and then a brief stint back to Cuba, but then it was Bolivia, which was the end for
Hmm,
him.
hmm.
So yeah, I just
So if he could have just chilled with his one revolution, everything would have
no,
been
it wasn't
fine, you know.
enough, eh? And I'm getting to the end of Narcos with the original one with old Pablo,
Mm.
who just won't die. But it's also like, man, when is enough enough? You know, when are you gonna now? Even though Pablo was doing some terrible things, let's look at the business side of things.
Mm.
When's it enough?
Yeah, when have you got enough
When's
money?
it enough? And that
Yeah,
you have to
you
start.
you're literally burying cash in the jungle.
Yeah.
People are still finding these caches of rotten money in the jungle. His money. That's how much cash he had. Like, honestly,
You know, like I'm gonna. I mean,
Greed.
I'm a you know, I'm a religious chap, and I think the phrase is something like the love of money is the root of all evil. I would say not so bad. I'd say you love money, that's cool. It's when you start loving this thing called legacy. Like, I've got so much money now, I want people to remember me forever.
forever. Yeah,
That is the real root of
I mean, yeah, that does seem
badass evil.
that does seem to
I mean,
build
just
some
a bit
monsters.
of money. I
Yeah.
got a yacht in the Mediterranean. That's not so bad.
It's nice to finally see a Christian person say that though, because normally the richest, wealthiest Christians all run churches, and they say, "Money's the root of evil. You need to give it all to me so that I can deal with it for you."
Yeah. Oh, jeepers.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Anyway, yeah. So
started.
I have no clever bon mot there. I've got no kind of loose connection. When was this revolution?
65. Oh no, so yeah, the trouble in the Congo was 65. The successful
So 1965.
yes.
Yeah.
The successful Cuban Revolution, I think, was 57 because the Bay of Pigs was about 59.
That's so
Or-
interesting. That's so interesting. Those dates line up absolutely perfectly to give me a link.
Good.
You know what was happening in Formula One in world racing
Hey,
in 57,
Oh,
58.
Mr. Jody Scheckter was in there somewhere at some point. He was in the 60s, eh? What was happening in 57, 58 Formula One? Did they even would they have started yet?
Yeah, they were. So anyway, so the biggest I'm going to tell you here. So what I'm
Formula
dealing with
One.
here is a company by the
Failure?
name of Lola.
This is an episode called Failure, and you
Yeah,
bring
yeah.
up Formula One.
I want to talk specifically about a company called Lola. Do you remember the name?
Mm.
Oh, okay. Did you watch Formula One
No,
in the
the
80s
song.
and the 90s?
Yes, very much in the 80s, late
then
80s.
Lola
yeah.
should definitely be one of those names that kind of springs to mind because Lola is a British car manufacturing company, and throughout the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, it was big. They
Was it a
used to
team?
manufacture. No, they used to manufacture. Well, hang on. They were in racing quite a lot. They did Le Mans and they did kart and they did all the like feeder series into Formula One, Formula 2, Formula 3000 or whatever, the A1 Grand Prix, all these kind of things.
Shit.
And they made chassis and different various parts for basically all of the teams. They were heavily, heavily, heavily involved. And in fact, their Formula One team, and this is my fact, was one of the most successful teams points wise. If you look historically,
Oh,
their Formula One team was historically one of the most points wise. But, and here's where we get to the failure bit. In 1997, the company went bankrupt.
oh,
And they went bankrupt solely because of the backlash that came from a 1994 incident in which they had constructed the chassis and the suspension that basically went wrong in the death of Ayrton Senna.
oh my
So that's my
word!
fact. There you are.
Oh dear, Lola. I don't remember it ever being a team. I Sunday afternoons, SABC3 or TV3 in the 80s was
Mm.
Formula One Grand Prix on a lot.
I think they've had teams, like it used to be like McLaren, Mercedes.
Yes,
I think
yes.
they've had teams where they kind of came in, assisted aside, ducked out, came in, created so they had teams over the years.
Lola,
But that
Lola.
successful enough that they if you tally up the points added by manufacturers, they're one of the most successful.
Jeez, Lola. And then that whole disaster.
And then this disaster off of the death of one person. Yeah.
And I was a waiter at Supersport Action Cafe in the late 90s. And I worked 3 Sundays in a row where they had Grand Prix on, and I didn't know it was so big. And these Oaks pulled in with they took the whole table in front of the big screen, the team Ferrari and some other team. But Shumi was riding Ferrari, and then I started my comedy industry with my comedy career.
Supersport Cafe is one of those funny things where, like, when you think back on it, like everybody used to go to Supersport Cafe. What happened to it? How did it go bankrupt?
Failure.
Right? Yeah.
But it was such a cool place.
I, in fact, because I used to part own a bartending company, and
wow.
while I was a student,
Yes.
and we were brought in one night because people had bought the Supersport Cafe in Centurion, and they were going to turn it into a restaurant, and we were supposed to get rid of all the stock on the final kind of closing night. We were tasked, like, just get rid of this stuff, do whatever it takes, empty it, get as much money as you possibly can.
Jeez.
It was amazing. We'd walk around with a tray of kind of sours, apple sours, which was big at the time, instead of saying to people, here you go, here's a dozen apple sours, give me $20. Yeah, so everybody got unbelievably drunk. I had pockets full of tips, and and then I walked out of there and got mugged by some drunk Centurion Oaks.
Oh my word!
Yeah,
like locals,
like
man.
Oaks, You
no,
wearing their
that's not the way.
Yeah, they clearly wanted cocaine money or something. Anyway,
yeah, man. And so at that Supersport, then I was just like three Formula One things in a row. And because the surround sound was so major, and I was working like a double shift, all I heard was Murray Walker's voice nonstop. And then I started comedy, and I just thought I'd do a little impression of Murray, an exaggerated one, and the crowd liked it.
I think Murray's dead now. You can do this may be your last opportunity.
Yeah, this is Murray. I don't remember Team Lowrap, but what I do remember, there goes Schumacher in his Ferrari, and Benetton, and Renault, and here he comes now. Oh, he's so very drama. Schumacher is out of the Monaco Grand Prix.
That's amazing. That's
and it's
very,
all I find.
very good.
I just couldn't get this guy's voice out of my ear. That's the whole Schumacher, Ferrari, Benetton. Because he'd be quite calm before the start of the race. And then there we go. And there we're looking at the lights now. There go the lights. It's 2, 3, 4. And there goes the sign of Schumacher. And Ferrari.
Go, I remember.
Yeah, go, Schumacher and Ferrari.
So I think everybody kind of liked him. He
was great.
He had a quote once where he said, "It's my job to get excited and go, there goes Häkkinen," and it's Martin Brundle's joke to say, "That's Coulthard." Very funny.
His voice and energy mimicked the cars. But your facts on Lola, gee man, it just doesn't ring a bell. The name Lola. But there was the Ayrton Senna incident, and I don't think you'd lie about something as horrific as that. Did you?
Oh, really?
Remember those terrible jokes? Did you hear Ayrton Senna was on the radio? Oh, stop it. I'm not going to finish the joke.
No, don't
not
you
going to finish the joke. I'm not going to finish that joke.
I heard the same joke about Princess Diana, though.
Oh yeah. Oh god. Okay. So I think you're telling the truth. Although I've never heard of it before, I think you're telling the truth.
Okay, it's all a blatant lie. I mean, there is some truth to
Lola?
it.
Is there a place called?
So Lola was a British motor car manufacturer during the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. They were heavily involved in racing. They did make a lot of engineered parts for Formula One, but they never had their own team. That's where I start the lie. That's where the lying kind of starts. They decided in 1994 they were going to put together their own team, and they were going to compete in the 1995 series. And then they decided, no, their development wasn't going fast enough. They're not going to make it. They don't have enough money to actually develop a Formula One team. So let's put a hold on this. And then MasterCard came in and said, no, listen, we'll give you the money. You develop it. You're Lola. You're this huge manufacturer. You've been in the sport for years. You've been, winning titles in basically everything. Why wouldn't you get involved in Formula One? So MasterCard put up the cash and they said, listen. And then Jackie Stewart started his team, and Jackie Stewart said, no, he's gonna launch in 1997. So MasterCard said to Lola, all right, you'll be ready for 1997 as well, because otherwise we're the Johnny come latelys here showing up in 1998. So Lola said, well, it's maybe a bit fast. We'll see what we can do. And they put together a team, but they didn't get enough wind tunnel time. They didn't get enough design time. By 1997, they had a car, but it wasn't by any means ready. So what they do is they go and they get a Ford ECA ZTEC RV8 engine to put in instead of their own engine, because their V10s aren't ready. And this is the first problem. Like, alarm bells are already going off. People are saying, but everybody else has got V10s. And you just got a little V8. and
there comes the Lola in 13th position.
Right. Well, so they signed two guys, Vincenzo Sospiri and Riccardo Rossi, as the two drivers, and they showed up at the Australian Grand Prix for the first qualifying.
Oh dear.
And yeah, it did not go well. Qualifying. So there's 107% rule in Formula One. I don't know if you know that. Right? It means that in order to qualify, you can be at 107% of the time of the kind of first qualifier.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So the fastest lap, so Spiri's fastest lap was 1 minute 40 seconds 972, so almost 141 seconds, right?
Yes.
The time required to qualify was 135, so there were 5 seconds off the pace, like full 5 seconds off just to qualifying that 107%. Jacques Villeneuve's time was 129, so they were like 11 seconds off, and Sospiri was the faster of the two drivers. So they didn't qualify for the Australian Grand Prix. And then everyone was like, oh, Lola, you haven't qualified for your first Grand Prix. And the team principal said, no, it's fine. We just, we had some issues with setup and things just weren't running smoothly. Car was aerodynamically bouncing all over it's just not fit. But we will be ready for Brazil in 2 weeks' time. And then they showed up in Brazil. And on the Wednesday before the race actually started, they said, no, we can't do it. We've run into further problems, financial problems, other issues. And MasterCard went, well, this is embarrassing for us, because the cars were painted in the colors of MasterCard, and they withdrew their funding. And Lola became the worst Formula One team of all time.
Shame.
There you are. Yeah. They showed up at 2 races in 1997
and qualified for neither. So you can do quick math. So if Villeneuve's time was almost call it 10 seconds faster than Lola's, well, more like 15.
It was almost 12. Yeah, almost 12.
Okay,
seconds, yeah.
that means in 12 laps time he's going to start double lapping. He's going to be overlapping.
Oh, roughly. Yeah.
Assuming
just do 12 laps, yeah. So every 12 laps, like you've got 60 or 70 laps, he's going to lap you 6 or 7 times.
Lola, then.
Yeah.
It's perfect because of that song.
Yeah, Lola.
Lola. Oh, that's a lovely fact. So we were in Australia a little bit, then in Brazil a little bit.
Brazil as well, if that helps.
A little bit of fast
also
driving.
In Britain, because they're a British racing team.
Yeah. and I'm going nowhere near to those countries. I'll start off in France with some mad emperor who decides he wants to conquer everywhere. Um, even as far as Russia, and it's the big fuck up of Napoleon in
Probably
Russia.
one of the most famous battle failures of all time, isn't it? I mean,
Yes. I mean, also again the ambition. You know, a humble Corsican soldier, inspired by some Corsican nationalism. Then he got inspired by the revolutionaries while he was doing his job, and then he was there was royalists in Corsica when they French, and he works his way up the rank, and a hell of a charismatic chap. I mean, you know, when I watch Narcos with Pablo, Pablo has this way of you can convince anyone of anything because he just looks you in the eyes and he just stares you and he makes you believe what he believes. You know, you get the feeling that Napoleon had that effect. They said he was like. If he was the coach of a Premier League football team, it'd be like they had 12 players on the field. If Napoleon was on the,
like Jose Mourinho.
oh yeah,
He's the Jose
he had
Mourinho
the change room
of France.
Yeah, he's the Jose Mourinho
of the whole
of the
country
French
of France.
Empire. Yeah, that's what we're gonna say officially. Napoleon Bonaparte was the Jose Mourinho of the French
But
Empire.
not latter day Jose Mourinho. We're talking Porto Jose Mourinho here. Classic Champions League winning Jose Mourinho.
Yeah, Roma's doing okay. Roma. So for some reason, the year before, good relationships with Tsar Alexander, and then it was a disagreement over Poland. Someone wanted Poland. I think both of them, the French and the Russians, and then there was disagreement, and then he's like, "How dare you? I'm just going to conquer you as well." And the Russians fought and defended their country like they know best.
Yeah, they
You
didn't. Yeah.
you retreat from Moscow, 100 k's outside of Moscow. Wait for winter.
You just retreat. You
and
burn
the
everything,
fields.
including
Burn the-
Moscow. Yeah, I think the thing that if I remember, Napoleon, he thought that they were going to stand and fight the Russians.
Yeah,
He was expecting this big
Yeah.
showdown battle.
Yeah.
So he took like 600,000 or 620,000 soldiers with him into Russia. Thought they were going to have this big standoff,
yeah.
battle to end all battles, but the Russians just basically retreated, burned everything, including Moscow.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, I mean, the commitment to fucking
Yeah.
up their country in
Yeah.
Russia is, as we know from this new Ukraine war, is really, it's on another level. The Russians love to fuck up Russia. Give Russians half a chance to fuck up Russia and they will take it now.
I mean, the book War and Peace, listen to the audiobook, and or the dramatization of something of the audiobook, and there's an old general in there who's like, retreat and wait and you'll see it's going to be fine. And indeed, you're quite right. There was not much fighting, except there was one battle. We're looking at about 35,000 Russians against about 44,000 French. So not the whole French army, a sort of sideline, Smolensk, I think it was, and mad casualties, horrible casualties. It was the only real battle.
But
And
then also, as the French were withdrawing, the Russians kind of moved in and started chasing them and knocking some people off, I think.
Yes, and there was, when you read cryptic things in history, like they were thinking, should they free the serfs as Napoleon's advancing? Should he free the serfs, and then he didn't know what to do about them, so he chose not to. And then they sort of, as he was retreating as well, some of the serfs turned on the French army and did things to them. Doesn't say
Kurva.
It doesn't say what exactly. It's like so my fact's going to be about numbers, because you spoke about numbers. You said 600,000. So I'll just go percentage wise. I'll say my fact is this: he retreating when Moscow's got no food, they can't forage for anything, and everyone's going to die, and the soldiers decide to walk back. They're like knee high in snow. It's crazy shit, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy shit. So I'm saying there's a river that was crossed. That was the invasion point, and when they crossed back, walking toward France, they had half their army. They'd lost half their army.
Phew.
Fifty
Yeah.
percent dead, starved, or yeah.
So here's my knowledge of this thing, right? So see, I'm not sure how many men he took in, but I seem to remember the number of casualties is 500,000, which in those days is just a ridiculous, staggering amount. So I seem to remember, and I don't know whether casualties means, and I think it means death and injury and permanently disabled and captured, and so I think 500,000 is that. So are you saying deaths? He lost half his army to death, or was a casualty?
Yeah, death, because that's who crossed the river. That's
Oh, okay.
that's how
okay,
that
okay.
fact is stated.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
Half his
as I say,
army.
I think the percentage of that invading force that was lost was very, very high overall.
Higher
Um,
than 50%.
yes, I'm going to say it's higher than 50%. Yeah.
All right. What if you say it's higher than
I'm
50%?
saying I'm going to trust that number that was in my head, 620,000.
To what
and half a
percentage
million
would you
and
say
half a
that
million
is?
deaths. So what's that? That's you're making me do math.
Little bit of
You're making me do math. So 5 out of every 6.
really.
5 out of every six and a
Fucking hell.
half. 5 out of every 6.5. So we're looking at like 80%.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I must applaud Mr. Warren.
Okay.
It was 90%.
90,
So
okay.
the fact that the figure I have is about 440,000 invaded and about 44,000 returned.
Sure. Okay.
So yeah, which means the deaths are 400,000. That's what one figure says. 400,000 deaths. Yes, see, that's a big fuck up, eh? That's a big.
Yeah. I mean, unless what your job is you're Napoleon and you're just looking for all the hot women of France, and you're like, you know what I'm going to do? I send every single man in France to Russia to die, and then, hey, there's a party up at Napoleon's house, ladies.
I mean, but what's the first phase of defending a territory is earning the right to live there and survive there. Almost, if you look at history, I'm talking historically. I'm not talking terrible wars and human rights things,
Right.
but it's like it's a freezing cold. No one wants to live there. Okay, well these oaks do. So
Yeah.
if you want to live there, you deserve to live here. Then fine, yeah, we'll live here. Vodka, we fine.
There's a joke in Finland where they like because the people from Finland, the Finno-Ugric people, came out of the steppes
Yes,
of Asia,
yes.
and then they're related to Hungarians.
Oh,
But there's a joke in Finland that there was a sign at the T junction that went like like it's don't go that way. It's really cold that way. And the illiterate idiots all went there and wound up in Finland. So yeah, but
those
so
Russians.
their claim is you wouldn't live here if you were given a choice, which is stupid. But actually, now they've made it into an unbelievable country and are the happiest people in the world.
Yes,
So,
and their previous president was lovely.
previous prime minister.
Prime minister,
Yeah,
she was lovely. She was ousted in a coalition vote, but
yeah, because she
quite-
dared to have parties at home. This is what happens, eh? If you vote in an 80-year-old, they're not going to have parties at home with their friends and family. But you vote in somebody who's young and kind of with it, that's what's going to happen. But all right, we're talking about freezing and the cold, and this is a real connection. I want to talk about Robert Falcon Scott, the guy with the coolest middle name in the history of adventuring.
If that's his real name, or did he give him?
He gave it to himself.
It's a record label. It's like, did you know this is for free? John Cougar Mellencamp. Cougar's from the record label. So then he dropped it.
I thought he was an elderly woman who liked to sleep with young men.
Or he could be an elderly woman who likes to sleep with young men. Yeah. So Falcon. I wonder if that's
no, that's genuinely his real name. So Robert Falcon Scott, obviously. Very, very famous, particularly in Britain, for being the second man to reach the South Pole.
I know a bit about the story. We actually did a TV show about it.
Yeah, so it is. Yeah, it's quite a famous sort of failure because, in a way, it wasn't really a failure because what happened is, obviously, just very quickly, because this is not what my fact is about. but he went to Antarctica
Mm.
with a group of men determined to become the first people to reach the South Pole. And when they
Yes.
arrived at the South Pole, they found a tent and a flag and a note from Roald Amundsen from Norway
Mhm.
to say that he'd been there a month earlier. And in fact, they knew that they had arrived very late and that the weather was going to possibly turn. They turned around and they started heading back. They'd made a couple of critical errors. One, they were late. Two, they chose to take ponies instead of dogs. Roald
Yeah.
Amundsen used dog sleds.
Yeah.
And the ponies slogged through it, which meant that eventually the ponies died, and they had to drag a lot of their supplies themselves.
No.
And then on the way back, one of the men got injured. I'm going to get the names here. So Captain Lawrence Oates, so Edgar Evans suffered a head injury and a wound on his hand and frostbite, and then he died at a temporary campsite on the way back. And then Captain Lawrence Oates got frostbite, and he's the one who very famously, they're all in the tent, and he said he knows he's slowing them down, and he sort of says to them, "I'm just going to go out for a little walk," and they let him. That must have been an awkward moment. But he headed out into the
Was
blizzard.
his final line was like, "I'm going to step outside. I'm going outside for a while. I may be some time."
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Maybe
So I mean, it's one of those
Not
kind of
funny.
sad moments.
Not
Yeah. So he
funny.
walked off into the blizzard, choosing to sacrifice himself rather than slow down his friends anymore. And then the other three, Captain
People
Scott,
pleaser.
Yeah,
People pleaser.
No, come on. Now he's got to be true to his real self. Just try and get himself out of there. Captain Scott, Lieutenant Henry Birdie Bowers, and Dr. Edward Adrian Wilson are the last three, and they died in a tent, apparently some 17 kilometers from the next supply depot. So quite relatively close to the, less than a day's traverse for them away from the supply post. But they basically camped down, realized that they were incredibly weak, that they were going to die. We know all of this. We know all of what happened to them because Scott kept a very detailed diary in which he explained everything. His last input is kind of like, yeah, we're going to die. But we hope that the people of England will see our achievement and look after our families and these sorts of things. And we got his diaries. And this is sort of where my facts start coming together. But yeah, they discovered the frozen corpses some 9 months later. A rescue team was sent out to come and find them, and they discovered the frozen corpses. What had happened was that the snow had carried on beating it, so there was only really the top of the tent available. They dug it out. They went in. They said it was very strange. It was like they were still camped there. Scott was even kind of half out of his beanbag, like he was out of his sleeping bag, like he was kind of climbing his way out. And but so they made the decision, trying to get them out of the situation was just, they were frozen, basically solid. Trying to get them out was impossible. So they made the decision to build a cairn above them, and they built a snow cairn because there was no sand or rocks or anything. And they wrote a note. A guy by the name of Edward Lester Atkinson wrote a memorial note and left it in a metal cylinder on the site. It said, I can read the whole thing, but just a little bit. November 12th, 1912, latitude 79 degrees, 50 minutes south. This cross and cairn are erected over the bodies of Captain Scott. He gives the names. And then he explains what happened to the other two and where the other two had died. And he said, the Lord gave and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And then they hiked out. But here's my fact. That despite them being found and despite them clearly knowing the latitude is 79 degrees, 50 minutes, the position being meticulously marked, no one knows where their bodies are now.
Oh, my word.
That's my fact, yeah.
Oh, my word. Okay, so you're saying they built some sort of semi-permanent structure?
No, it wasn't a semi-permanent structure at all, or a permanent structure of any kind. I think they left a flag there and this metal cylinder and some kind of tokens and mementos, but they didn't have anything to build a structure with. They kind of built a hill, like a conical hill out of snow and ice.
Okay.
Yeah, but as I say, they did mark the location. But yeah.
But so you go there where they marked the location, no trace of these three things. This is your fact.
This is my fact. Yeah.
Okay.
This is
all
my
right.
fact,
So this
yeah.
could be a load of bollocks. Okay. Look, I think that the North Pole there where they were at,
The South Pole.
Yeah, that's what I
that
meant
that
there.
that poll as
South.
well. Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of things that would not preserve something. I don't. If it's like it would be the biggest missing persons mystery ever that would never be solved because no one wants to go there. Um, I do think it's not true. I think it's a lie. And let me tell you a little bit about why I know a little bit about that race is because our production company, Urban Brew Studios, they covered the race, the centenary, so 2011, because this
Okay.
was
Whew. It's like,
no,
wow.
no,
Wow.
they covered the centenary race. There was like how many 7 countries decided to race to the South Pole, and we had 2 of our heroes, Peter Van Etz and Bram van Straten, or Bram Fish, not Bram Fisher. He's the drive in Joburg.
Yes, he's the
Bram
road.
van Straten. They were like two South African adventurer chaps, and they raced against Norwegians and British, and I don't know who else to get to the. But there was a starting point about 700 kilometers away, and on foot, on skis, and dragging their stuff, and the Norwegians won. Would you believe it?
Unsurprising.
Because
Also historically accurate.
yeah, because cross country skiing is like a thing for them. It's like no
Yeah.
problem. So our oaks were practicing on the beach in KZN
Brilliant.
with tires, with tractor
Well,
tires.
They were the bobsled. They were the cool runnings, the Jamaican bobsled of this thing.
And
Were the Germans particularly mean to them? What are you doing here, South Africa? You do not know how to ski. I mean, really.
and it's like, what's fascinating is they said just the Norwegian cross country skiing technique, because everyone in Norway does this sort of thing for
Yeah.
fun every weekend, anyways. It's like, even if the South Africans
Mainly because the
learned,
country is very boring. It's very boring there.
even if the South Africans learned good cross country skiing technique, the Norwegians have got like this much further on every stride
Okay.
because
They've got this. Okay.
yeah. So they were doing like 50 to 55 Ks a day, and everybody else, even South Africans, were in about the 30 to 35 Ks. So 20 Ks a day further.
Wow.
Was incredible. And did a bit of, that's like I know about I'm just going outside. I maybe sometime. But I don't know about the story of the missing persons, man. I'm gonna say it's a lie. Gosh, I hope it's a lie. It would be so odd. Like Bermuda Triangle stuff, man.
I mean, it's true.
No,
It's true. We don't know where the body is, and this is because
this is
all right,
crazy.
that
Like,
cairn.
covered by more
No,
ice.
well, so what happens is that cairn is located on a 100-meter thick section of ice called the Ross Ice Shelf,
Okay.
which is constantly being fed by glaciers on the one side,
Okay.
and then inching its way slowly towards the sea. So,
Okay.
and in addition to that, snow is falling from above on the Ross Ice Shelf, and it's melting from underneath.
Jeepers.
So it's
Oh,
been
my
calculated
word.
that the bodies would be roughly 17 meters deep now, and it will have been moving. Now, in addition to that, this entire ice shelf is actually shifting towards the ocean. So it's not just that the snow is kind of piling on top of it and melting underneath.
I mean, they might still be alive, if you know what I mean. Cryogenically.
Yeah, maybe
so-
there's a way to bring them back. Yeah, but so as such, the cairn, the tent, all the bodies, etc., are now believed to be about 70 kilometers away from where they were originally found. They don't know where exactly, but
okay.
they know that they're still on the move. they're still going, and glaciologists, which is apparently a thing, have said they would still be very much intact, and that in about 250 years from now, they will carve out on the inside of a glacier into the Ross Sea, at the McMurdo Sound, and they will drift around inside a glacier in the Ross. In the Ross Sea, and this is very serious, in the Ross Sea and the Southern Ocean, maybe even the Southern Ocean, until at some point the glacier will melt, then casting these fresh bodies into the ocean from where, bacteria will finally get them, and wild animals will be able to finally have a go. And and eventually they might wash up, they think, on the South Shetland Island shores 350 years after they die. So, but we don't know where they are now. These are all estimates and calculations based on how fast the glacier is moving. But yeah, the bodies of these three guys, they're still exploring, Ryan. They're still exploring. Still trying to make their way home to Blighty.
Oh my word. What a way to go.
It's horrifying. I wonder if they left them in the tent, if the tent itself would be floating. So therefore, if it hit the South Sea, maybe the animals wouldn't even be able to get them.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
Maybe they're
beautiful.
just floating around like a tent of corpses at some point. 350. I mean, for all we know, humanity could be long gone by then.
And
They could be the last bodies left on Earth.
on the Shetlands, okay, so
South
not quite
Shet-
the
South Shetlands,
not
yeah.
quite the Falklands, the Shetlands.
Mm.
Falklands, that would be nice because it's rule Britannia, you know. Well, it would be quite a...
Finally, Robert Falcon Scott comes home. I hope the English have chopped the heads off their monarchy by then. In fact, I hope the English have chopped the heads off their monarchy by next Tuesday. But let's not get into this too heavily.
I just watched the highlights. It was lovely. I liked it
You and my mom.
when William had to kiss his dad's cheek. I don't know if he had to, if he chose to, but it was
Did he
sweet.
use tongue?
I don't think so.
Slip him the tongue.
And Princess Catherine looked very cool in this like blue robe.
I don't even know who Princess Catherine
Kate.
is.
What's
Oh,
her name?
Kate.
Did you say Catherine?
Kate Middleton. Yeah.
Is she a princess?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, is she?
She had this big blue robe thing. Very,
Brilliant.
yeah.
I mean, you should be covering this. It's like you've taken me there. Like you've transported us, me and the viewers, right into the.
And then there's a conspiracy out about Princess Anne's hat was deliberately big to hide Harry's face, who was sitting 3 rows back.
I see. 3 rows.
Funny.
I mean, one would have thought that they would have had her sit right in front of him if that was the case, surely.
Well, that's how intricate these royal plots can be.
Yeah, no, you're right. They make sure that she sits 3 rows in front with a three times larger hat than normal to make sure she's covering all the angles. Yeah. Selfish. So didn't she think she would be sitting somewhere near the front and therefore she's blocking the view for everyone behind her? Rude.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, we've had such adventurous tales now, and I'm about to bring it to a most boring, unadventurous place ever.
You can't say that. People are switching off.
No, don't. Just wait till you hear the new. Because
How
enrage
boring
you.
could it be?
Well, I'm taking you to the highways of Gauteng.
Oh, nice.
The e-tolls.
I mean, that's a thing that failed
The
epically, didn't it?
e-tolls. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a disaster. You know. There's
So for those who don't live in
fucking
South Africa,
hell.
the e-tolls, yeah, explain what they were.
Okay, so there was a great big Gauteng freeway improvement project, literally called the Gauteng Freeway Improvement Project. And the highways around Joburg and Gauteng, the old N1 North, there's literally a beautiful, those who don't know Joburg, is awesome highway that circles the larger part of the city, and a great, awesome highway. It takes you all the way through to Pretoria. And it's fantastic. It's really good. They extended the lanes. There's an extra lane either way, maybe 4. At some points, there's 4 this way, 4 that way. It's great. And it really did help the traffic flow and all that stuff. And it cost a bloody fortune. It cost 22 billion to do this. And then, but John Vlismus, I remember at the time, I think he made a joke about it because we see these highways getting bigger. That's great. They're building. Oh, it's going to be nice. Then voila, it opens. We're like, this is awesome. And then it's like, okay, who's paying for all this? Oh, we are. Because up go these beautiful, weird gantries. So there was the old school toll gate thing that just kind of sat there. I think they call it boom something. You know, the official name. It's just the old toll gate where you got to stop, pay the toll operator. Not with these new fancy ones. It scans your license plate and sends you the bill in the post. Very, very clever.
And now the people of Gauteng were going to
going,
pay
uh,
for these things. Yeah.
yeah. And John's joke was like, that's typical Joburg or South African mentality. We see these things being built, and we kind of know because it's a road that we're going to have to pay for it, but we stay quiet because it's great. And then it's like, pay time. No, protest, protest. And so that, I don't know if he has a point. He might have a point, but yes, it's exactly what happened. Oaks stopped paying. They didn't pay. Like, what?
They just refused.
Yeah.
People would get their bills in the post, and as a country, people just refused. It wasn't like
Yeah.
there was a small percentage of people that refused to pay their bills. It was just
vast majority.
basically everyone. I think in
Yeah.
the end, they got something like about 15% of people
Yes.
to pay, and that was only because they forced the car rental companies to put a tag inside of each of their vehicles.
Oh,
So the car rental companies, yeah. So that was
was
automatic.
part of the fee for renting the car.
That's right. So that was a percentage of they got that money. They got the money from the companies with their cars.
And
but
a certain
nothing from
Mr.
private
Chris
citizens.
Forrest, he paid his e-toll.
I had a friend, and I'm not going to mention his name because Grant Buchanan would be very embarrassed. But he paid for years. He paid his e-tolls. He believed we were all going to be caught out. He was the anti-vaxxer who believed that the rest of us were going to see the wrath of our errors at some point. Also, he's an extremely moral person. But yeah, he paid, and I think about 5 people in the whole city paid. So Chris Forrest,
and Grant.
Yeah, and then the rest of us just said no.
Look, I actually would have paid if I had the money to, but things are tight, Some
Yeah.
things are gotta go. Some
And
bills are gotta
the
go.
highway of free. And here's the funny thing about this thing is they've shown conclusively that widening freeways doesn't lessen traffic; it just makes more traffic. So they've shown, there's all sorts of studies. that show that.
The one claim is that since they opened it up, suddenly Joburg was no longer the most congested city in the country. That award goes to Cape Town now, and they say no, it's because they widened it. Who knows?
I mean, that'll be the propaganda on the other side, right?
Yeah. The good news, or the news at least, is that e-tolls have been scrapped. So the whole thing is gone. You don't have to pay your bill.
But after 15 years, so what would happen is, I remember before every single election, the government would go, "Oh, if you elect us, we'll get rid of e-tolls," and then
So
we'd elect
Sanral
them.
would go, what?
Yeah,
Sorry, what?
Yeah, Sanral, the company.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
So did we not tell you there's a loan for 22 billion?
Yeah, and then every time they were elected, they went, we were just kidding about that scrapping the e-tolls thing. You guys must pay or you're going to jail. And everyone just didn't do it. They just didn't care. And eventually, I think they saw the writing on the wall, and they realized that this bill still needed to be paid. It would just have to come from somewhere else.
Yeah. So the showdown was heading a certain way. So 2022, the thing was finally scrapped. But here's my fact. By 2018 and the latter part of 2018, beginning of 2019, the bill for unpaid bills had grown to 11 billion. And SANRAL started to issue final warnings to consumers. And as a state institution, they were not obligated to inform motorists of the judgments against them. And my fact is this: motorists started discovering that they'd been blacklisted when applying for loans by SANRAL.
So, I mean, that's almost certainly true. But here's an interesting fact about having credit in South Africa, right? This is the country we live in. So South Africans are so heavily in debt. There's so much debt, so much unsecured debt, of which this is part of it, because there's no security attached to this debt. You just owe someone money.
Yeah.
Right. That to try and get these cases, every single case of outstanding debt in front of a court, just for one appearance, right? So this is, if the person admits that they owe the money, then you have to go to the court and you get an order against them. Just one appearance. It would take 472 years because our courts just don't have the capacity. So essentially, in South Africa, if you have an unsecured loan, you don't have to pay it off. If you don't want to pay the money, you don't have to pay it off, because There's basically nothing your creditor can do to you. But the one thing they do have over you is this
That
blacklist.
you can't get more credit.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
can blacklist you, and then you can't get more credit. You can't buy a
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
You can't buy a car.
Yeah.
You can't. So you can go on that list. But
Yeah.
essentially, if you, if like the government, you owe Edgar's 50 grand for shoes you bought or something, then there's nothing Edgar's can do. and Edgar's knows this. You know, we've got large sections of our population that basically have Edgar's on their phone just so they can ignore the calls, you know.
And they have great shoes.
Yeah, and Edgar's is going bankrupt as a result. And that's the other backside. The other flip side is that companies do go bankrupt. But in when it comes to Sanral, I don't mind if they go bankrupt because they've built the highways now.
No.
Yeah,
But hey,
there
there wasn't.
classic fools. It's a
like-
fool. You don't give us what we want, everything, and then be
Yeah.
like, yeah, but now what about my? You know, it's like you kidnap someone's son, and then you're like, give me the money. And they're like, okay, but give me my son back first. And then you go, okay, here's your son. Now give me my money. That's Sanral. Give me the highways. You know, we've got your highways. Give me the money. No, give me the highways first. Okay, here's the highways. Now give me my money. No.
That's very bad negotiation. Very bad
Yeah.
negotiation.
You gotta get the money first, and then you give us the highways. That's how that works. Otherwise, you're in trouble.
Yeah. And well, you said the fact is true, and it is true. And the other bit of news coming out of this is that bill is going to be paid 30% of it by the Gauteng provincial government, and then the 70% by the National Treasury. So they're getting their monies anyway.
But that's who should have paid it anyway. You know, like there was all this talk about why should Gauteng pay for these highways, and everyone was like saying, oh, well, users must pay for the highways. The people who use the highways must pay for the highways. And then what Gauteng counted was they went, yeah, but we pay like 60% of the tax in the country. So we run the whole country basically. And we need to get to our jobs so we can carry on paying the taxes that you use to build roads in your provinces. You know? So some of our taxes must come to us as well. You know? So that's why that's how it eventually.
So are
went.
those pretty blue lights going to stay? Are they going to switch them off? Say
No, they're
switch-
gonna turn them into UV lights, and you're gonna be inoculated for COVID. Every time you drive under it, you're gonna be it's a beautiful UV antibacterial I don't know. They should hold parties under them. Raves.
Hey, they're very cool little lights. You know, you feel quite cool driving under them.
Yeah. I think if they'd started demanding that people pay, people were angry. Eh? Like, if they demanded that people start paying, we would have blown them up.
I think it's R7 every time you drive through one.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Staggering amount of money.
Yeah. Or
R7.
R2.45, or I don't, you know, it added like, because if you're driving from like 4 ways to Boksburg, you're gonna drive through like 4.
Yeah, and you're gonna pay roughly $1, $1 per trip. But it wasn't. It was too much. South Africans were fucked off about it.
So
And
that's
then they even said afterwards, they were like, "Oh, you're gonna pay this," and then somebody did the maths, and it was like, "Oh, it'll cost him like 8,000 rand a month to get there and back to work." And they went, "Okay, no, all right, fine. No, that does sound silly. So we'll cap it at 500 rand a month." And people were like, 500 rand a month? That's outrageous. That's what I earn, in a week. Yeah. And the taxi associations were not they were not having it either.
Can
Yeah.
you imagine?
Honestly, we should be doing the same thing with e-tolls that we did with e-tolls for everything. We should be doing,
Yeah,
like for everything. This government shouldn't be able to function at all if they
Yeah.
don't listen to the people.
yeah. The load shedding thing is just the Eskom thing is too crazy to understand.
I love the load shedding thing though. The load shedding thing is quintessential South Africa, right? So we're going to cut off all your electricity, but you have to pay us more for it. Like we want a 40% increase in the price of electricity that we are not going to supply to anyone. Like, wonderful. Anyway, like, if you want to start delving into failure, this is the country to come to. We love it. I realized how broken I am. Like the government's won. The other night, my power went off in the evening, and I was like, "All right, well, I've already had my dinner, so I'm just gonna go to bed." Like fucking,
Yeah,
like
look at
absolutely
us.
humbled,
Look at
absolutely
us.
broken.
Yeah.
No anger in me whatsoever
No.
anymore. Just completely subservient lick spittle to the
They've beaten us into submission.
That's right. Yeah. I'm broken. We should be guillotining MPs outside of the Houses of Parliament.
Yes, just like the old days, eh?
Yeah, just
Oh.
one. Anyway, I'm sure I've said this. I'm sure I've said this here before. Let's talk about the Titanic.
Ooh, that's a nice face.
Yeah. So all of this is my fact. All of this is my fact. You're gonna have to watch
one guy who failed. I'm supposed to be that dude. He failed.
I mean, this is what my whole fact is about, right? Like, this is where we're going. Okay, so the Titanic was marketed as being an unsinkable ship.
Yeah.
And it struck an iceberg on the 10th of April, 1912, and it went down with at least 2,224 people on board. That you can take as read. That's not my mislead, right? Like, that's the thing. Without a doubt, a massive failure on the promises that it failed to deliver. So now these are the cited reasons for why it happened. Like, why was the unsinkable ship? Why did it sink? One, the steel sheeting it was built out of was a kind that was extra brittle in cold conditions. Two, so this is all part of my fact. The ship ignored numerous warnings of ice on the sea, and it was barreling along at 22 knots, which in 1912 was they were appalled at this speed, but it's 40 kilometers an hour. When it should have been going much more slowly because of all the ice. And then the Titanic, as you say, was not equipped with binoculars, and as such, Frederick Fleet, the lookout, only saw the iceberg late. All of that is my fact.
Oh my. Okay, well, the kind of sheety thing, I don't think that's true. The going too fast thing was true. There was that, the James Cameron documentary. Like, it ends with them all sitting around a table going.
You mean Titanic?
No,
the movie. The movie. It's not a documentary, Ryan. That old woman wasn't really on the ship, Ryan. It's very important.
James did a thing.
Okay,
He made a docu, and then afterwards they were like, "What would you have done? What would you?" And they're going around asking, and James has a go as well. And I think speed was an issue. I think I would have
40 k's an hour, 22 knots. That's what the speed was.
Because that means that the big ship turns slowly, type of thing. Oh, shit. So the speed thing, I don't think it was sheet metal, the wrong sheet metal. And then the no binoculars on the ship. No, I think I think the whole overall, the fact is false because of the binoculars issue and the type of metal issue. I think you're lying about the Titanic. You're lying about that grand old lady.
So everything about that is true.
Oh my gosh.
Except for the fact that it was marketed as an unsinkable ship.
Oh.
Yeah. What happened? All right. So let me just go back and I'll deal with each of the things at the same time. So the steel, there's different ways of making steel, and the way they chose to make the sheet metal for the steel was in fact more susceptible under cold conditions than in anything else.
Okay.
And in fact, the Titanic received at least 6 messages from other vessels in the area warning it of ice. So it had been told, Yes. The public inquiries found that the captain of the Titanic failed to offer proper attention to the iceberg warnings, because almost an hour before the collision, Titanic's radio operator dismissed a key iceberg warning from a nearby ship, the California, because he considered it a non-urgent message, because the warning didn't begin with a prefix MSG, standing for Master's Service Gram, and therefore he didn't pass it to the captain. But they ignored, and so they were going too fast under those conditions. We're at 22 knots, 40 kilometers an hour. And then, ridiculously, the binoculars were locked in a cupboard. The lookout's binoculars, they were locked in a cupboard, and the keys were with a guy by the name of David Blair, who had been the second officer of the ship, and he'd been transferred off just before the ship left port.
So I'll tell you one thing that did sink is slavery, which brings me to my next fact, which is
brilliant.
It's in England. It's 100 years earlier. The great
1812.
Yes, the great slave abolitionist William Wilberforce That's a nice movie. Amazing Grace is the name of that movie. Yeah, you've seen
I
it.
haven't seen it.
It's got Stretchy Man from Fantastic Four. He plays William Wilberforce.
No one's seen that movie either.
It's a nice movie. I think there's more than one. They're
there
lovely.
were at least two.
The Rise of the
Yeah.
Silver Surfer. I saw them with my kids because you could get free movie tickets with Discovery
Yeah,
Vitality.
particularly for Fantastic Four.
Yeah,
No, they were giving those tickets away. Nobody wanted to pay for them.
thoroughly loved them. I liked the Fantastic Four when I was a kid. I had actually the comic CNA thing from Christmas. Lovely.
Being a comic book collector in South Africa was an experience because it was like when we were kids, because it was the height of apartheid, kind of 1980s,
Yes.
and South Africa was under sanctions.
Yes.
So CNA, our local news agent, would only get one out of every 5 or 6 copies of comic. So then if you were like a Swamp Thing fan, you'd go and you get number 1 and then number 7, and you had to try and piece together the story. That'll teach us for committing human rights abuses.
We had a dude, a good friend, in boarding school, Bryden Burton. He would come with his trunk and suitcase of clothes for the term, and then he came with a suitcase with comics, and boy was he popular. Yeah,
we had a guy similar to him, but his name was Adrian Wong, and he came with pornography. There's always one kid in the school. He's like a year older. He's failed a year or two, and he's got like a locker full of porn because his parents don't care about him. That's why he's failed a year or two, you know.
And he's usually, even it starts in standard 5 with like a 14-year-old dude who's doing it for the second, third time. Do you want to see a picture of him? My gosh, where did you get that?
What is that? Is she carrying a Pomeranian? No, that's her 1980s vagina.
That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. Yeah, that's what it looks like. You want to get this information maybe from a book from your dad or your mom, or when you're ready. But no, you got it from
Adrian
Tony
Wong.
Gonzalez.
Second break.
Okay, so abolitionist, right? So he led quite a soft spot. He had a very emotional, beautiful spiritual conversion, and because he was that sort of what we'd call today happy clappy. He was evangelical. They were a bit like frowned upon in British society, even though it was good Christian society. Evangelicals were a little bit weird. So he had a political career, and he was like, "Oh, that's going to mock me now. I think I'm going to think about stepping down." And it was the prime minister that convinced him to stay in politics and actually campaign on the abolition of slavery and stuff. So he a great man, and he also put in a lot of work into society and try to revitalize the morals of British society. A good man, definitely conservative in his views and all that stuff. But he did a really great thing.
But he loved a Christian rock band. Yeah. Good man.
I love that
Christian
video.
rock band.
That video. What is it? Jesus is my friend.
Oh, Jesus is my friend. Yeah, look it up.
Really? Yeah, Jesus is my friend. It's definitely inspired by like madness or something like that.
Yeah.
Welcome to the house. So Jesus is my friend.
Yeah, look it up. Look it up. I haven't seen it. It's terrible.
So after winning, the end of slavery was not just one event. It had numerous campaigns, and the way it actually got defeated was by a sneaky little law that passed the people who were pro the whole operation, and that passed them under their noses. They didn't quite know what was happening, but it was like, if you're carrying this flag, then you'll be arrested if you're carrying that flag and not that flag. But by that weird, sneaky way, by accident, it was the beginning of the end for slavery. It's a great movie, Amazing Grace, great story. I've also listened to the book, which was written about him. Great, William Wilberforce. But this episode is called Failures. So what
it's not
failed?
about a successful abolition of slavery.
And so this is where it gets heartbreaking and sad. Is his son was a slave trader.
I know he had a lot of kids. He had like 6 kids, and I know that one of them wrote a book about him.
Oh,
which actually like apparently irritated some of the other abolitionists because
Oh.
it elevated him in the abolition fight and sort of played down their roles. Um, I wish I could remember his name.
Yeah, one must remember that sentiment. I mean, we all love Mandela. I love Mandela, but he wasn't the only struggle hero, you know.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right. So was his son a slave trader? I don't. That sounds crazy. I mean,
And he considered
right.
it a major failure that he's helped bring about this, but his own son.
You seem too smug about this. I can't. I can't. No, it's nonsense. It's not true. It's not
Oh,
true.
it is a load of bollocks and lies. But here's the sad part. This is the sort of failure part.
Okay.
I'll read a little bit. In 1826, Wilberforce moved from his large house in Kensington Gore to Highwood Hill, a more modest property in the countryside of Mill Hill, north of London, where he was soon joined by his son William and family. You're quite right about the 6 kids.
Okay.
Yeah. William, this is the son, had attempted a series of educational and career paths, and a venture into farming in 1830 led to huge losses, which his father repaid in full, despite offers from others to assist. This left Wilberforce with little income, and he was obliged to let his home and spend the rest of his life visiting family members and friends. And he continued the anti-slavery cause, but he died a little bit poor because his son fucked it up, man. He had a farming venture and it fucked up.
Are you trying to imply that he should have been a slave trader? And I think that's what I'm seeing here from you. I'm seeing like Ryan is all like, if only he'd been a slave trader and he'd made some money, his dad wouldn't have died in poverty.
How could you not make money back then? Britain was taking over half the planet, and you could just do something, get a job.
Yeah, so it must have been one of the other sons that wrote the wildly successful book that pissed off all the other abolitionists.
William. So I listened to his biography, and it's a wonderful story. But that saddened me a bit that he was like, he had to struggle a bit at the end because the son.
There's a lot of people
fucked
who
it
there's a
up.
lot of stories of people who
Shame.
despite being wildly successful or kind of creative have wound up dying destitute or sort of lonely deaths.
Oscar Wilde thing is a sad story.
Right,
Sad
right.
story.
Yeah, I mean, but there's all these people. The name briefly escapes me, but the guy who cracked the Enigma code.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Anyway, he also basically denounced by the British for being homosexual and died in poverty, and and then there's also name escapes. How are these names escaping me? The guy who Thomas Edison stole all his ideas
Oh.
from.
Oh,
He
not Osram. What's the other name of the light bulb? is that the name of the other light bulb company?
But there's a lot of guys who've died in poverty or struggling after they've had really successful careers. You've got Alan Turing who cracked the Enigma code.
Shame, man.
Yeah, and Nikola Tesla. I mean, he struggled as well after Edison stole all his stuff. There's all these facts where they're like, you see on the motivational sites, Thomas Edison, he just never gave up. Thomas Edison, he said, I don't care about 10,000 failed experiments, but because that means that I'm 10,000 steps closer to my final goal. But actually, what he was doing was stealing more successful scientists' stuff. I mean, there's a lot of guys that they do these amazing things, and then they wind up. Society's just we've got a penchant for ignoring people once they've done what we need from them.
Yeah,
like Sanrail. We should really. Sanrail is currently
really
dying
should.
in poverty when they've built these magnificent highways for Gauteng, and the national government would like it if you could just donate 50 cents or R1, just put it in an envelope and pop it in the post box for Sanrail. They'll never get it because the post office is also going bankrupt.
Oh yes, they
but
are.
it's the thought that counts.
Yes,
It's the
yes.
thought that counts.
Shame. Those highways were ready for the World Cup. I think that was the big rah rah.
Oh, is that
Oh
right?
my word! Yeah.
Was it
that's
10
right.
years we ignored them? That's nice.
Yeah. So no, indeed, the Wilberforce.
Good. Okay. All right.
son
Right. So now
wasn't a
we're on
slave
to our
trader.
multiple choices. Let's fire through these multiple choices. I've got a very important one, Ryan. It's very, very important.
Good.
And which of these famous people, these noted celebrities, is the only one not to have a failed music career on their CV? Yeah. So all of these people, in addition to being successful in one field,
Okay.
noted celebrities are also failed musicians,
Mhm,
except for one of
mhm,
them. One of them is not a failed musician. All right. So is it one, A.B. de Villiers, two, Andre Agassi,
Oh.
three, Kim Kardashian, four, Ryan Gosling, or five, Naomi Campbell?
Oh, this is a tough question. AB, did he do something? Andre, Kim, Naomi, and Ryan Gosling. Okay, I'm gonna say
Ryan Gosling from La La Land.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say no.
He's definitely had a music career, right?
Yes.
Definitely.
Naomi Campbell. Oh, she was in the Michael Jackson music video. I don't know if she can sing. Andre, I wonder. Man, maybe Kim did some weird, like, yeah. It's such a AB. I recall AB doing something weird like that. What did he do? Oh, this is a tough one, Andre. What's your red herring, man? There's a red herring hiding in there. Maybe it's. Oh, this
Has
is
Michelle
a tough
broken
question.
Has she
hey?
broken down my multiple choices for you
Yeah.
and told you
Yeah.
what to look for? Is that
No,
what
not
Michelle's
yet.
done? Okay.
No, not yet. But I have to give an answer, don't I?
Preferably.
I'm just gonna say Andre Agassi. I don't think he had a failed music career. Andre Agassi.
Now, so do you want me to go through the list again?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's A.B. de Villiers,
Yeah.
Andre Agassi, Kim Kardashian, Ryan Gosling, Naomi Campbell.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's Andre Agassi because I think AB did do something silly. There's a bit of a thing, and AB did it, and yeah, but
It was a
everybody.
bit of a thing, and A.B. did it.
Yeah,
So it
but
must be Andre, right?
Naomi and Kim and Ryan seem like they would have dabbled. This, I mean, Kim certainly dabbled in music, and music dabbled in a little. It's a bit
Naughty,
naughty.
Ryan.
It's a bit
Naughty.
naughty.
All right, is that your final answer?
Yes, Andre Agassi.
All right, so let me break it down for you then. Naomi Campbell, supermodel, was slammed with by critics when she came out with an album called Baby Woman. Which honestly,
yeah, Naomi.
her album sold only 175 copies. Very sad. She claimed she was popular in Japan though, so
Really?
who knows? Ryan Gosling and his friend Zach Shields formed a band called Dead Man's Bones. Their one and only album came out in 2009. Obviously not a roaring success. Kim Kardashian, she released an album called Jam, Turn It Up. It's a song, called Jam, Turn It Up. It has a music video. It was released in 2010. It did make some money, but that's because the proceeds went to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital for Cancer. She actually, of herself, says it's the one thing in her life she regrets doing. She says,
never mind the old.
Never mind the
sex
video. Yeah,
tape,
this is the
okay.
thing. Yeah, like what gave me the right to think I could be a singer? Like I don't have a good voice. Yeah, you weren't famous at the time of your video either. So now it's down to between A.B. de Villiers and Andre Agassi. And you're right. Andre Agassi is the one who did not have a failed music career. Andre Agassi's got a very famous music career. No, I'm joking. He has no music career at all. A.B. de Villiers, of course, coming out with the song Maak jou drome waar. And if you haven't seen Maak jou drome waar, like go and look it up. It's horrific. It tarnishes all the good work AB did with his cricketing.
The fastest 100 in ODI history.
Yeah, like 6 of South Africa's fastest top 900s. AB de Villiers, one of the greatest batsmen of all time. But once you've seen Maak jou drome waar, it's just not the same. Dale Steyn takes a step up to the ladder. Is what I'm saying about that.
Oh,
But anyway.
wow. Well, that's a lovely little fact. And I'm sticking with the entertainment world. And my fact is this, my multiple choice is this. Which of these movies only one of these movies didn't lose money in the cinema release of their movie. They might have made up some money when it went to video or CD or the
Or
DVD or
streaming, or
yeah, but cinema release, only one of these
was not a
made money.
failure.
Yeah, the rest were failures. So we're talking about 4 options: Cocktail, yeah,
You love Cocktail.
Showgirls,
Okay.
The Masters of the Universe, and Waterworld.
All right.
I
So
mean, we're talking about how ice kills people, yeah, and Waterworld just happens to follow that theme because the ice caps melt and then it covers the earth in water, and Kevin Costner's on a raft.
I mean, we really did talk about ice killing people, didn't we?
Yeah.
We were like Napoleon's invasion
Yeah,
and
the Scott and the
it's
South Pole,
the South Pole and the
There was-
Titanic.
oh my word!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
No,
this is
Waterworld.
if you're going to take away one lesson from today's podcast, it's that stay far away from ice. If only we'd gotten ahead of this message before the 291 people who've died on Everest. Anyway,
Jeez.
so listen, Showgirls was a known failure. It was a known total collapse. I
Yeah.
think it's considered by many to be the worst movie ever made.
It's becoming a weird cult classic in terms of it's so bad it's good type of that weird realm of movie, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
The Room and stuff like
Yes, The Room.
that.
Oh, hi, Mark. All right, Waterworld was so Waterworld was a big financial loss, but not really because of Waterworld. It was because they had a lot of things hit the set, if I remember correctly. Like they had this floating island that sank at least once, potentially twice. So they had a lot of stuff that really ramped the costs up. So I think they took a bit of a bath because of that, rather than because it wasn't popular. It wasn't popular, but that was the main cause.
I can tell you at the time it was of the making. It was the most expensive movie ever made at the time.
Oh, well, there you are.
Mm,
Okay,
mm.
okay. And then the other two are Cocktail and.
The Masters of the Universe.
Whew. So the Master of the Universe carries a massive franchise, but what they did was they made a giant mistake with the Masters of the Universe, right? Because the first thing they did with the Masters of the Universe was they took the characters of the Masters of the Universe from their home planet of Eternia, and they made them go through a portal onto Earth.
Oh, jeez.
Because that's obviously much cheaper to shoot, right? You got Dolph Lundgren as He-Man, and then all of these other characters, and they're on Earth. So it means it's a disastrous movie. It's absolutely terrible, terrible movie. And I can't imagine, even if it had.
He
say,
looked the part though in the poster. I haven't
he's
seen
Dolph
the movie.
Lundgren, right?
Yeah.
Like, Dolph Lundgren, who, by the way, I think has like a chemical master's degree. Like,
My
like,
word.
yeah, you wouldn't
wonder
imagine
if
it
it-
from Universal Soldier, but he does.
I loved He-Man. I wonder, and then people say, "Oh, that movie's terrible." But I wonder if it is now sort of so bad that it's good in that.
Ooh, so it is a total disaster of a movie, and I can't imagine it's the sort of movie that maybe had a record opening weekend. I went to go see it. My brother and I went to go and see it at the big screen.
Ah,
Yeah, and we were
Wow.
thoroughly disappointed as like 10-year-olds, you know.
jeez, that's crazy. That's so sad.
Yeah,
Because He-Man was huge, man.
he is huge. Why does he have to wear those fluffy pants? But all right, I'm gonna say that He-Man was a loss. You know, you've got to have a red herring here somewhere, right? Like, is Cocktail your red herring? Is Cocktail? No, it launched the career of Tom Cruise. It can't be a movie that took a loss. All right, it's He-Man. He-Man was shot on such a low budget that it actually made a profit. There you are. That's what I'm going with.
Oh man, this time around you should have gone with logic and not
Oh, really?
not Ryan is trying to
Deception.
trick you.
Uh,
Because okay,
was
so
it Cocktail?
I don't have money on the Waterworld, but I do know at the time most expensive movie ever made. Didn't make a profit in cinema. Only started making a profit eventually when it was released onto other platforms, video and
Okay.
DVD and that sort of thing. Masters of the Universe cost 22 million. And on cinema made 17 million. That's a 5 million
so
rand.
close.
Ooh.
It was really low budget though. 22 million is a very low budget film.
Showgirls was expensive.
Mm.
I'm not sure where the money went, but it was 45 million and they made only 37 million, lost about 8 million, but has subsequently gotten some weird cult status.
So it
And you
was
got to see this.
Cocktail.
Yeah.
I thought you were misleading me.
Well, it was Cocktail indeed, but the critics slammed the movie. I don't know why, because I think it's lovely. And it won the Golden Raspberry for worst film.
Quite often, critics slamming a movie is a sign that it's going to do well. You know? Like, I mean, it's increasingly happening now. You find critics slam a movie, and then the audience. You see it on Rotten Tomatoes has got 2 scores for a reason. And like, this is the audience score, and this is the critics score. And sometimes you see the critics will be like, "This is a piece of rubbish. Nobody should go and see this. It's Sonic the Hedgehog. He looks ridiculous. How awful is Sonic the Hedgehog? We hate it." And then stupid mindless guff for stupid mindless people, and then they score at 8%, and then the people turn out in droves and they drive it through the ceiling.
Yeah, and they talk about it being a very nice performance by Jim Carrey as the dude,
as the Sonic the Hedgehog. No, it's Dr. Robotnik.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting thing. I don't think they call him Dr. Robotnik. I think they call him by his original name, which is the Japanese name, which is something different. But in the West, they released Sonic the Hedgehog, and he was called Dr. Robotnik. The main bad guy, yeah.
Well, Cocktail cost 20 million and it made a whopping 170 million. Despite
I was convinced you were misleading me because it seemed too obvious, Ryan. It seemed too obvious.
Yeah. And Tom, it was the movie after Tom made Top Gun. It came after Top Gun. And then Days of Thunder came after that. But Tom had a lot to do with the script, and the soundtrack is wonderful. Of course, it's got the Beach Boys song.
All right, let's wrap this up before you
get all
climax.
80s.
Yeah.
Oh,
good.
man.
Thank you very much for joining us.
It certainly wasn't a failure this episode.
Hey.
Hey.
Thank you very much for joining us.
joining
Click
us.
like, subscribe, share
Yes.
with people, because Lord knows we need it.
Good morning, good afternoon. If I don't see you tomorrow, good night. Or something. Bye. And there go the lights. There goes Schumacher. There goes Ferrari. And
Go,
Lola.
go.
Here comes Lola all by herself. She's riding in a pram. Lola. Go, Lola.
How much of this have you got left?